As a former Green Beret and program manager training foreign law enforcement organizations in behalf of U.S. embassies internationally, my teams train police forces in Central and South America and around the world in human rights of suspects, fugitives, detainees, and prisoners, including people of the LGBTQ communities. I understand the critical role of law enforcement in the safety, security, and protection of our communities and in the humane treatment of all citizens. Like the great majority of Americans, Latin American community has a deep respect for our law enforcement professionals. We also have a passionate desire for law and order and equal justice for all citizens, both within our communities and throughout our nations. Now more than ever, we desire to build and sustain cities and towns in which our elderly, children, families, and communities are safe and secure from the pervasiveness of today's violent crime. We tremble with fear every time our children leave our homes, even for a minute, to go to school or to play with their friends. We are horrified when we witness our communities being torn apart by agitators or hear of mass shootings at our children's schools, places of worship, or in the streets of our cities. And like most Americans, we are deeply saddened when our innocent citizens are senselessly slaughtered by acts of terror, when our young are killed by stray bullets, when our elderly are openly and violently beaten on our city streets. Latin Americans hold dear the central principle that there can be no civilization, society, or prosperity without fair and impartial law enforcement working in concert with our communities. Latin Americans have a large presence in our law enforcement agencies at the federal, state, and local levels throughout our nation and within our communities. We revere them highly for making our communities safe, just as law enforcement officers from all walks of life do. We reject the Democratic Party's premise that law enforcement is inherently evil and that our police officers and police forces are the enemy. As alert, intelligent, and thinking Americans, we recognize that there will always be a small minority of bad apples everywhere in life, not just within the law enforcement community. Better selection of citizens to become law enforcement officers, combined with comprehensive initial and continuous training and close career-long monitoring, rids our police forces of many of the bad apples, yet some will always slip through the cracks, just as in all professions. Respect for law enforcement and first responders who get caught in a crossfire, rule of law, and equal justice for all are resolute Republican principles. These principles must continue to be strengthened and sustained for the protection of the Latin American community and all Americans throughout our nation. We as Latin Americans are essential to the American community, and we must strive to ensure equal application of the rule of law and equal justice for all. We must restore and sustain our nation to a civil society that is safe and secure for all Americans. We must continue to support our law enforcement professionals now more than ever. We must be a voice of reason within the chaos that swirls all around us today. Please support our law enforcement and our first responders by voting for conservative Republican candidates to make certain we improve the safety and security of all Americans.